The modern family. If y'all remember, how many of y'all remember way back in the 1800s? The Brady Bunch. Remember the Brady Bunch? And then there was Leave It to Beaver. Remember that one? Do y'all remember Leave It to Beaver back there? Yeah. So we don't have that anymore. So today's practical conversation is going to be about the family. So whenever you say the word family, what does that conjure up in your mind? The word family. Laura? What does that conjure up in your mind when somebody says the word family? Come on, cough it up. Okay, so right? Okay. So, Andrea?
For me, it would be this traditional mother, father, children, extended ways with grandchildren, cousins.
So it really is different for everybody. The word family comes up, and it is very different. It doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. Some people have that loving feeling when they hear the word family, and then some people actually get the creeps because they've survived something out of, like the Herman Munster kind of thing. And what I want to talk about is the modern family. I found this online. It was very excellent. Is defined by its increasing diversity with no single dominant structure remaining in the United States. So the family, what used to be, is no longer. It's totally different. And most of us have not adapted to that. We still think regular mother, father, and it isn't that way anymore. Households now encompass a widespread mix of dual working married parents, single parent homes, multi-generational living, blended families with step parents, same-sex couples, and a growing number of single-person households. And that is the norm today. It is not the norm of the nuclear, what we used to think back in the 1800s as the nuclear family. It is not like that today. In fact, that's kind of rare if you see that today. The current demographic trends indicate several ways the definition of family has evolved. Diverse household structures. Over 28% of U.S. households consist of individuals living alone. For family households, the nuclear structure is no longer the default. Not here, not anymore. Children live in blended families, same-sex families, and that's widely accepted and visible now. So people that are teachers, they come into contact with that frequently. Later formation in smaller sizes, Americans are marrying later in life. Families are choosing to have fewer children or are even remaining childless by choice. Multigenerational living, economic pressures, caregiving needs, and cultural traditions have caused a surge in multigenerational households where grandparents, parents, and children share the same roof. So there are also converging parenting roles. There's a growing trend toward shared caregiving and domestic responsibilities. What's the issue? The issue is that terminology is changing too, but are we changing with that terminology? Think about it. Think about when you think about the word family, are you thinking traditional family? Are you thinking mother, father, and children? Well, the terminology is changing too, because partners could mean anything. Wife does not mean what it did back then. Wife does not mean what it did back then, because husbands have wives, but women have wives too now, and that is very widely accepted as well. And it may not be accepted in the traditional, religious way, but if we're unity, it's accepted. Like, we don't really care. You just have great children. And husband doesn't mean the same as it did either, because, Stephen may have a husband. We don't think about that. As soon as someone says the word husband, we immediately think it's the woman that has the husband, but it's not that way. People are not getting married, but they are committing for life, as in a life partner. The word mother evokes different feelings to different people who have had certain experiences. So, what does the word mother mean to you? Andrea, since you said what family means, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, my experience, a loving person who put you above even herself.
Okay. And I love that. That was not my experience. I'm still trying to recuperate from my experience. And the word father. So some people don't have that. Thankfully, I had a fabulous father. But when someone says the word father, that evokes different things to different people. So understanding family structures and dynamics, we have several different things. We have nuclear families, extended families, single-parent families, blended families, multicultural families, same-sex families, childless families. Again, open your mind and think about all the different types of family structures. And the multicultural families, people will come over from maybe India, and all their people live with them. They just pack it in. So do Asian people. They pack it in. All the grandparents, everybody's going to be, they don't care. If you old, you're going to be living with us, and that's the way it is. So we also have deaf families. Families that cannot hear. Maybe some or all of the children cannot hear, and they have one or two that can hear. And so you have that. You also have one parent might be blind. Maybe both parents are blind. But that's what you have in that kind of family. You have maybe one parent that's disabled, that's in a wheelchair. You have friends that are families. I mean, you don't have any family, or maybe your people are kind of crazy and you had to let them go. And you just reassemble, and you have your friends as family. Chosen family, that's the same for those relatives that are too toxic and the person has to create their own family. You have step-parents that are raising the ex-spouse's children. Okay? You don't think about that, but that's what happens. And then you have people that are in prison. And people that are in prison leave children behind. Women go to prison, men go to prison, and they go for a long time. And then who do their children have if there's no family? So they have to either go in the system or someone takes them in. Grandparents raising kids, but like the people in prison. So I read about a woman the other day that killed her husband, and she had 2 small children. And she got convicted. She's in prison for life. And so his people took the 2 little children in and adopted the 2 little children. They're probably maybe 5 and 8, something like that. So then you have grandparents raising kids. I have a friend that's raising her 9-year-old grandson. There's no parents in sight, and so he has his parents. So we have something age-old that still reinforces an old thing. It's an assumption that is not true, but we do it all the time. And I hope that we can stop doing it. It's called the Mother's Day and the Father's Day insanity. If you don't have a mother, that's fine if you do, but if for the people that, don't have good memories of that, every year that comes around, people dread that. And it's more than not. And the same thing with fathers. Maybe you didn't have a good father, and then you think about that. But if we could come up with something better and more descriptive to still honor the people that took care of us and actually liked us if our own parents did not? Is there a term that we can use? And then the other thing is the insanity of children that are in the system. Children that they have no family, and so they're in the system, and they can't be adopted by anybody other than straight parents. So now, since that rule goes into effect, the kid is left in the system without parents or without a family that could otherwise have a fabulous, loving family. But there's those rules in place. And just because a kid grows up with the 2 same-sex parents does not mean they're going to grow up being perverted. That's almost crazy, but they don't. I was a hairdresser for years. I saw a lot of that. And they don't grow up that way. They adopt children, and they are the same. They do the same things that we do, and they have wonderful, wonderful families. So what I've noticed is that schools and churches keep us locked into the antique mother and father family, that nuclear family, by continuing to use the word parents. Now, how does that make somebody feel if they don't have parents? Maybe they have a mother and a stepfather, but their parents maybe are not living together, or maybe the grandparents are raising them, and then you tell them, take this home to your parents. Well, that just drives it home further, because you got to take it home to your grandmother if you're being raised by your grandmother. So while parents might fit a very small majority of families, it alienates the vast majority of the diverse families that are made up differently. And there are a lot of families that come over from overseas, and their parents stayed overseas, and so those children are being raised by aunts and uncles and all of that. But then we come to church or we go to school, and you take this home to your families, or we're going to have a Mother's Day banquet. But there's no mother, your mother is far away, or you have no mother. Or maybe your mother's mean and you don't want to do that. So you're a nuclear family until you're not. So nuclear families sometimes are nuclear families for a small amount of time. And then there's a divorce. Now, it used to be way back in the 40s and 50s, there weren't that many divorces, but today there's divorces every day, all day. Most of them are divorced. And sometimes they're divorced 2 or 3 times. So what about those nuclear families that aren't divorced, but they got bizarre things going on? You don't know that they're bizarre until you find out some way or another. And so The modern families just really don't have any kind of definition. But we really do have to think about the antique terms that we're using when we are trying to be inclusive, because unity is inclusive. It doesn't matter. You can't take that away from, I mean, you can kind of outlaw it a little bit, but it still is going to happen. So we can still be inclusive, but we don't have to use those kind of terms. We can think of other great ways to, include people that are, not set up the traditional way. And, unmarried partners also have children, but they're not married. They're unmarried. So like Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, what would they be considered? What kind of family? Would that be a nuclear family? But they're not married? Or how does that work? So as we go and as we are evolving ourselves, we're always healing, and we as people always evolve. Are you the same person that you were 10 years ago? Or have you been 14 people since then? Because if you've been 14 people since then, that's how many times the family has evolved. I'm saying let's evolve with that. And let's start using inclusive terminology instead of saying, take this home to your parents. Take it home to your family and have whoever's going to sign it, because your mother doesn't always sign it if you don't have one. So here at Unity, let's remember to honor the new modern family structures by adjusting our mindset to the updated versions of family compositions. Let's stop using old antique terminology like parents and just use the word family. It's almost easier. And let's have Family Day instead of Mother's and Father's Day. I mean, we still can honor our mother and father if we're having Family Day. We can also honor those fabulous people that really actually took an interest in us and liked us if they were not our families. I had that. I had a great surrogate mother that was interested in everything I did. She was more my mother than my mother ever was. And that's okay. That does not make me sad at all, because people just have people that like them a lot, and you can too. So it does put people in an awkward position to having to explain that their family's different. But different can be fabulous, very fabulous. And your family does not have to be relatives related to you that you share your DNA with. Your family can be people that you choose, and also that you're in, that really take an interest in you, and that still could be a teacher. Or that could be someone that doesn't alienate you. So let's just stop excluding those people and remember that different does not mean unloving. Well, thank you for your time.